Hello and welcome to Write It Up, the podcast all about the ins, the outs, and the in-betweens of self-publishing. I am P.E. Craven, but you can call me Paige. I am the romantic fantasy author of the Realm Leaper series and Oak, which is now out. It came out in September. I write twisty, turny plots that pit the main characters against fate and free will. It's a little bit about me. I am really excited for today's episode featuring Lauren M. Leasure. She's an incredible author and has a marketing mastermind. Very excited. I'm not going to spend too much time doing an intro here. But I do want to say before I get started, I want to say it at the beginning of the episode. If you have enjoyed the episodes in season 2, if you've gone back and you've caught up on our episodes in season 1, I would love it if you could drop a review, do a star rating, share the episodes with somebody that you think might also enjoy the content. I would love to get this kind of more out to more people, get a little bit more traction, a little bit more traffic, because it is really fun and I love the chance to talk to and meet other authors. But it's not really, that exciting if other people don't also get to hear what they're doing. So share it, give me a star rating. That will do more than you could possibly know. Without much further ado, we're going to get into this awesome, awesome, awesome marketing podcast with Lauren M. Leasure. And my puppy dog is ready for me to kick over to that interview and for you guys to get to know everything that she has to share with us. Enjoy the show. Today we have Lauren M. Leasure, a romantic fantasy author, here to talk to us about marketing on social media. So welcome to the show, Lauren.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited. I have been watching your social media for a little while, like just kind of creeping in the background. um, and I really enjoy what you do. And I'm really excited to talk to you more about your strategy, what is working, how to really like make the most of these resources that we have. Because I think you've done a really excellent job, and I'm just so excited to have you here.
Well, thank you so much. I'm very very excited to be here. I love this is like the intersection of my two parts of my life, marketing and writing. So this is I'm a happy girl right now.
Okay, so I always start with a little bit of an icebreaker to kind of get us started. So my first question for you today is, what is your favorite trope, or what is your favorite trope right now?
So I feel like grumpy sunshine right now, but also that's always like in the top three. But I'm a very cliche, like just give me enemies to lovers, give me grumpy sunshine, give me one bed, like honestly throw a dart at the board and I'm fine with anything and I love all of them.
I uh tend I do like enemies to lovers,
Mm-hmm.
but I have a real like sweet attachment to friends to lovers.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's not everybody's favorite jam all the time, but I just like, to me, it's one of the sweetest, like just romance arcs. To me, I just
Yeah,
such a fan.
I like that more for contemporary. I feel like it for some reason in my head works more when I read a lot of contemporary when I'm writing fantasy. Um, but no, I definitely like that, especially the whole childhood friends to lovers later on thing. I can get behind that definitely.
I love that. Okay, second question. So we are really focused on self-publishing. This is
Mhm.
really geared towards people just starting out the process. So I love to ask the question, why self-publishing? What pushed you towards going towards
self-publishing instead of traditional publishing or even like hybrid publishing, which is becoming more popular nowadays. What
Mhm.
what really pushed you that way?
So when I first started out, I never ever thought that this was going to become a career, nothing. And I had, like most people, I feel like I had no idea what I was doing. So I didn't even think I didn't even like self-publishing didn't even cross my brain because in my head, what I feel like a lot of people outside the bookish world and the book, industry think was, oh, that's not legit. That's not real. That's what I sort of had in my head. And as I started researching more, I realized that that's completely wrong. And some of the books that I had read had been self-published or, had started self-published and then been picked up by a traditional publisher. And with my background in marketing, I sort of felt like I had an eye for things like that. And I felt like I could do a lot of it myself. I had a very clear vision for um, how I wanted it to look, how I wanted the book to look, just from the cover to the formatting. Um, and also how I wanted my marketing plan to look. And I knew that if I were to pursue traditional publishing and, be fortunate enough to be picked up and go through that process and everything, I was going to basically be signing my baby away. Um, and so ultimately, control. I guess I'm a little bit of a control freak, and I feel like a lot of people that's why they choose it as well. But yeah, it came down to feeling like I had a skill set that I could utilize and wanting to have complete control over every element, every part of the process.
Yeah, that's such a common answer too, is like that creative control and ownership
Hmm.
of your work is such a
Yes.
critical piece of self-publishing. And I think too, there's this like misunderstanding about traditional publishing that when you are
Hmm.
traditionally published, you just get like unlimited resources,
Yes. Yes.
especially in marketing. And that's not
Hmm.
really, sometimes you do, but there's
Hmm.
also sometimes where, they're mainly just doing the distribution, and then you're kind of in charge of marketing and like trying to make it a thing. Um,
Right.
and it's sometimes hard to know like which way that's going to go in traditional publishing. Um,
Hmm.
I think in 2025, we've seen a lot of discourse around traditional publishing and who is getting the resources from the big
Hmm.
houses,
Hmm.
um, and then who is just getting picked up and kind of like just left behind by those same
Right.
publishers.
Right. Right.
So I think, yeah, that is such a common answer. And one of the reasons why I just love self-publishing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's switch gears into social media and marketing
Hmm.
because I found out, I think it was today, and we're recording this in July, so it's going to be some time before this is released. But I found out today that
Hmm.
like this round of social media success is not your first
Yeah. Yes. I
time at like
I didn't even think about that when I posted that. Okay, so first I'll tell the class. I'll share with the class. So, in 2021, I TikTok was already pretty big. TikTok got big, as we all know, during the pandemic, during lockdown. And that's where I feel like it really caught on. And my friends would always send me TikToks, and I would not watch them because I was like, I don't want anything to do with TikTok. Well, one day I downloaded it. And one day I decided I don't even know what possessed me to do it, but if you've heard of laundry stripping, which is where you take borax, washing soda, not baking soda, washing soda, and powdered detergent, and you mix it all up in your bathtub and you throw your laundry in there, it's supposed to help, like the chemical reaction of some sort is supposed to help break down like the built up grime that your washing machine doesn't get. So one day I decided to just film myself doing that. And I went to my friend's house and I checked my TikTok that I forgot about, and it was like 5,000 views. And I thought I had gone viral. 5,000 views was like mind blowing to me. And I kind of kept going, and one thing led to another, and suddenly I had 250,000 followers, and I was randomly like I was finding things around my house to clean in the bathtub, and it just, I don't know, it just became a thing. So the whole shtick of that was the stuff, the stuff that the gross stuff that came off of whatever I was laundry stripping was like soup. So I started Soup Nation. Um, and yeah, I had like a little stint as a TikTok influencer. Um, and yeah, I don't even know what else to say about it. It was very random. Like it was, now I look back, I'm like, what the heck? And I learned, obviously it taught me a lot about social media. And when it came time to, you know, when I was writing the book and everything, and I realized, okay, this is what I want to pursue, and the audience just didn't transfer. You can't just convert an audience that's here for one thing into, everyone's here because I do laundry. Not everybody here is going to be a fantasy reader. Um, and it had increasingly, due to some other things, like become kind of a negative space. And a few other things happened, and I kind of decided to step back. But every once in a while, I think about that time in my life. And oddly enough, I literally today just posted on my TikTok for the first time in almost 2 years, um, because I was like, I needed to laundry strip my couch cover, so I was like, why don't I do it on TikTok? Uh, so yeah, so that was kind of my first round of success. I still have like a 250,000 followers, like 250,000 people. That's insane to me. That is
Yeah.
bananas. So, um, so yeah, so I have a little bit of experience on that those things.
And I think that's such a good like reminder that social media is not always formulaic. Like
Mm-hmm. Yes.
you can, have the best plan and it's not necessarily going to play out the way you think it is. And then there's going to be
Mm-hmm.
some things where you just like randomly pop off.
Yes.
Um,
Exactly.
so,
Yeah.
but,
And I feel
but,
like they change the algorithms a lot. Like I know with
Mhm.
TikTok, they change, and I know everyone's, oh, the algorithm, the algorithm. I'm gonna tell you, I don't know anybody who really knows like what the algorithm is. And I feel like it changes all the time, and they do that on purpose, so you can't hack it, sort of, quote unquote. Yeah, but there is really, yeah, like you said, not really a straight up formula that you can follow to, there's formulas you can follow to find, your niche, your people and everything, but there's no formula to like go viral to get those 250,000
Mhm.
followers. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay. And then there's something else I want to come back to with that. But I'm gonna put a pin in it because I think it's going to relate to
Okay.
something else we talked about.
Okay.
So when you were first pursuing self-publishing,
Mhm.
and you have a marketing background, actually, first off, what is your marketing background? Because you mentioned that like you have this skill knowledge that you were, excited to use in this journey. So what is that background?
So I knew from a young age that I wanted to do something creative. And so starting as early as high school, I was in, the like TV production studio. I was always on the newspaper, all that kind of stuff. That kind of was like adjacent to marketing. And now like looking back, I didn't know then, but I was picking up on a lot of skills in terms of, you know, yeah, marketing. And then I got my bachelor's in strategic communication, and then I went on to get my master's in strategic communication, and I graduated right after I published my first book. So uh, that just the like academic experience went hand in hand. And I don't necessarily think that you need an extensive academic background in marketing to understand, the concepts of marketing at all. I don't think that, um, but there were some things where it helped. And then I worked in actually chiropractic for total 5.5 years. I worked as a marketing representative for one company, and then a very good friend of mine who is a chiropractor, she opened up her own clinic, and I became her director of marketing there to get the clinic off the ground. So um, I have sort of, you know, interesting little pockets of experience here and there. But the bulk of my experience in terms of my book has just come from, or in terms of, yeah, the book world has come from marketing my own, stuff. Um, yeah.
Awesome. So then when you started working on marketing your book, Did you
Mhm.
start out with a plan, or did you just kind of start with like experimenting and kind of seeing what stuck?
So looking back now, I started marketing, I want to say maybe 2, 3 months before my first book came out. And I just happened to be, I followed the right accounts, um, and would interact with them. And um, I didn't necessarily really have a plan. I sort of was fresh, at the end of my master's degree. So I had a lot of these like little things in my head that I couldn't even tell you what they are now. But I feel like a lot of those little things, to where my brain was just in that mindset anyways. Um, and I sort of just followed along with what I was seeing with other people, what worked for them, what worked, what didn't. And obviously, like you said, like I said, there's not necessarily a formula, but just like one of my biggest pieces of advice for people who want to write, I say you have to read. You have to read. It helps. I think it helps you, come up with new ideas and stuff like that. Um, if you want to market, I think you need to consume content. I think that's one of the easiest, best, most comprehensive ways that you can learn how to market is just by consuming other people's marketing. I
Oh
hope that
yeah,
made
I
sense.
think
I
that's
don't know if that made sense. I kind of went off on a little tangent.
no, that's perfect. And so, what kind of marketing did you start with in the beginning, and how has that kind of evolved over time?
So in the beginning, it was very much I was doing the like okay aesthetic reels. That's what I call them, where you go to Pinterest and you download a bunch of pictures, and that's not really a thing that you're supposed to do anymore with the copyright issues. And
Mhm.
looking back now, I didn't know that then, but that's definitely something I also tell people going forward is like, just because it's out on the internet does not mean that it's fair use. Um, but I was basically trying to show people like, okay, here's this world that I am building, and it wasn't all like the Pinteresty things, um, but I was trying to give pull quotes, that I thought people would identify with, and yeah, try to kind of clue them into this world that I was building that I thought they would be interested in. And I guess another good thing, and I think that I did back then was, oh well, if you liked Akatar, if you liked, From Blood and Ash, if you liked this book, then you're gonna like my book. That's something I see, a lot of people do anyway. So honestly, in the beginning, I didn't really even start out with all that much of like a plan. My plan was get my book out there.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't necessarily recommend that like mindset. I think having a little bit of a plan is better, but uh, yeah.
And so that's kind of how you started. And then it's definitely gone through a shift. And so how
Mhm.
has that kind of evolved over time? What are you doing now versus what you were doing at the very beginning?
So now that I really feel like I found my audience, um, I do less of like I guess like blitz of um, of content where it's like I'm heavy hitting. I have enough people, I feel like, in my corner, enough readers that I don't necessarily need to, or I don't feel the need to be constantly reintroducing my book. A lot of authors do that, and that does, that's going to find you new readers, of course. But I kind of rely on um, I guess I would say like almost behind the scenes. It's kind of like how I you don't need to be on TikTok for your book to be on TikTok because Book Talk's gonna pick it up. Um, so it's definitely evolved in terms of when I was publishing my first book, I did not have my son. I all of my energy was being poured into, the book. And when I published my first book 3 days before that. I actually found out I was pregnant with my son, and
Mm.
so and I had a really really hard pregnancy, very 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 difficult to the point where I was like, I don't want to write anymore. I'm just going to pull all my stuff and go. So that really put a lot of things into perspective as well. And I know I'm going off on like other tangents here, sorry, but but yeah, it's kind of. the blitz of it all, the craziness of the marketing has calmed down to a more manageable level where I feel, confident in my strategy. I go through points where parts, you know, points of time where I'm doing a lot more, and I go through lulls where I'm doing a lot less. And
Hmm.
those times where I'm doing a lot more sort of carry the times that I'm doing less.
Hmm. And was there a moment where you realized that the social media content was really working to help bring your books to um, the right audience?
So honestly, anytime I receive a comment from somebody who doesn't follow me, who hasn't followed me, or maybe just started following me, that's always, and even if it's just one comment, it doesn't matter if the video has 20 views or 20,000. Um, One comment kind of shows me that it's working, because not every video is going to go viral. And a lot of it honestly comes down to finding the right audience, because you'd much rather have 100 views and have it be viewed by 100 people who are into the niche, are into reading fantasy, are going to
Hmm.
read your book, versus you're getting 100,000 views of people who they got it for some other reason in their algorithm. So something that kind of clues me in that I'm doing something right is, receiving comments from strangers, or messages, or just something to say, hey, you've reached somebody outside your normal circle, outside of
Hmm.
your already established audience.
Nice. And you mentioned like a strategy. Do you have a strategy right now that you think is really working?
So yes and no. So it's kind of like the blessing and the curse of having like marketing mind is I don't really set out with like a set strategy. I feel like it's just sort of in my brain. Um, so I have a sort of formula, if you will, of what I follow in terms of a release. So I kind of follow the same pattern in terms of like, okay, I do a cover reveal. I do, the 10 days before the cover reveal, and then I do the cover reveal, and then I do, I have however many reels about it. And I sort of follow what's trending. And I think that that's something that most people do, but I do try to fit in the sort of sequence marketing sequence that I've had in the past in with what's trending. So I'll do a cover reveal video with a currently trending audio or sound, whatever. Um, and I start to ramp up more and more the closer I get to release. Um, and I have utilized, I don't know, like, if trying to think, you might need to cut this part out. I don't know if like tour companies. So that's something
Hmm.
that I didn't know. Going into this, there are companies that exist that basically do book tours, quote unquote, but they're digital. So it's like you can hire these companies to um, have recruit people to post your cover reveal at a specific time, or post your just released at a specific time. So um, my strategy is a little bit of chaos, but I feel like it sort of has to be in this day and
Hmm.
age. Um, yeah, so I really sort of just do what I can, and I think it's a testament to the business that there doesn't necessarily you don't need to have a rigid marketing strategy, honestly, to find your people, to find your audience.
Yeah, and I think that's important too because uh like you mentioned, the algorithm changes a lot.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah,
sometimes the strategy or the plan that you had isn't necessarily going to pan out, once you
right,
actually start initiating it.
right,
So it
right.
does require quite a bit of flexibility.
Yes.
Um, Cool. And actually, there's another guest that we've had on the show that talked a lot about book tours, and we
Hmm.
talked a little bit about street teams, and those are
Hmm.
great ways of expanding your audience
Yes.
because they are obviously, just having more people out there broadcasting is going to
Yes.
increase the amount of visibility that you have. Um,
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
so you talked a lot about like what's trending, and
Hmm.
I think that can be a little sometimes like tricky or intimidating because it's hard to
Mhm.
know like what is like a sustainable trend, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Because like some things are going to
Mhm.
trend for like one day,
Yes.
whereas
Yes.
some things, have a little bit more longevity.
Mhm.
So what are you looking at when you are going through and you're looking at what is trending? What is like the thing that you are looking for before you start to create some of your content?
So I guess there's two like separate things.
Mhm.
When I notice songs trending, um, when I notice songs trending in my head, that pulls more to like, okay, quotes. Okay, this is a currently trending song. What does it relate to in, what quote can I put over it? And those tend to do really well, in general. On the other side is more of like sound, so something that's not a song. So, like a clip from a show or whatever, people are lip syncing. What can be made, what can be used to talk about the book, talk about your work, talk about, anything you're trying to promote, because not every trending sound is going to be, you can't apply every single sound to what you're doing. Um, and I try not to waste too much energy. Like, if I get the idea right away, great. If I don't, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, okay, well, I really want to use this sound. I really, really want to use this sound because it's trending. Because, like you said, chances are in 2, 3 days, it's not going to be trending anymore.
Right.
And that's sort of like the double-edged sword. And I love social media and I hate social media. It's so time consuming. It's so soul sucking. It really is. But it's very much a necessary evil. So, um, yeah, relevance to what you're doing, and whether you can do it, in a timely manner, because some days you don't want to be on camera. Some days you don't feel like, exerting that creative energy. But definitely, I would say, like, yeah, the number one thing is relevance. Is, can you apply it to your book, to what you're trying to promote at that moment?
Hmm. And then, I think you do a really good job of just being present. There's plenty of content on your platform that features you. Um, do you have any tips for people who feel a little self-conscious or um, hesitant to like be in front of the camera as they're
Yeah,
marketing?
it is self-conscious, because I mean, anytime you're putting yourself out there, um, it's you're inviting anything you put out on the internet, you're inviting feedback, and then putting your
Mhm.
literal face out, and your body and your physical presence out, that is terrifying, because it opens up, especially if you catch that one thing and it goes viral, you're going, there's potential you get comments about things that have nothing to do with your book. I guess my biggest advice on that is, it's going to feel terrifying. It's going to feel cringe. Like, you're going to feel cringy. Oh, is this good? Like, do I look good and whatever? And one of my biggest, I guess, pieces of advice for that is, look at like the videos and the things that make you laugh. Look at, a lot of times it's literally just people laying in bed. They don't have a full face on. They don't, they're not perfectly lit. And that's a-okay, that's fine. So, I definitely, more now, I get that kind of like self-conscious feeling of like, oh, I feel like I need to be like done up when I get on, and that's all well and good, and that's fine. But I feel like it's just, at the end of the day, yeah, it's not that serious. People are, they want to read your book. They're looking for a new book to read. So, um as as like much, I guess, easier it is, or easier said than done, like, try not to
Yeah.
focus so much on yourself, and focus on on your physical presence, and focus on the content that you're putting out, if that makes any sense at all. But yeah, it's nerve-wracking. You're putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
It sucks sometimes.
Yeah. I think it's a good point too, is like it doesn't have to be scary. It can just be
Mhm.
fun. Like
Yeah.
one of
Yeah.
one of my most successful reels since I started was me doing like a dance compilation
Mhm.
to get low.
Uh-huh.
It was just fun. I was just like out there just wilding out.
Uh-huh.
And like holding my book. That was it. Like
Uh-huh.
I was just having a good time. And it was like literally in the caption was like, there's no point to this other than I want you to see my book. And I felt like dancing. And
There
I
you
had like,
go. Yes.
yeah. So like if you're interested, if you had a fun, good time, um, and like I had a huge amount of engagement in that. And so like
Mhm.
there was no plan going into it. It just happened to be that this song from when I was a teenager was trending again. And I was like,
Mhm.
you know what? Let's screw it. It's summer vacation. I feel like dancing. Let's just go have some fun. Um, and it was great. And then, you know, I tried it again with a different song later and it flopped. You know, so like
Yeah.
you you don't know what's gonna happen. Um, but if you're having fun with it, it makes it like, I don't know, sting a little less
Yes.
uh
Yes.
when things don't
100%.
take off. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so obviously dancing for me that one time had a lot of engagement. Do you feel like your audience, like there's like one thing that typically just gets the most amount of engagement for your audience?
Usually quotes. I feel like, and you get, as you read, you kind of like gain an eye for, oh, yes, this is a good marketing quote, you know. So as you kind of go through your book, that's one tip is, as you're editing or writing or reading or whatever, and you come across a quote you think would do, sound good or whatever, write it down immediately, because it doesn't matter even if you're like, oh, this could work. But yeah, usually quotes, I feel like that gets the most from like my ride or die, like the followers that I have that have been readers for a long time. And also, that's where a lot of times on the outside I get people saying, what is this book? I need to read this, kind of thing. And yeah, like you said, like one of them's gonna do great and one of them's gonna flop completely. There is really, you know, no just set way to do things. But that's typically off the top of my head, like a quote is a good bet.
Yeah. Um, and then I feel like it's so tricky. I am actually having to learn this lesson right now. So like I messed up a little bit and was using my platform more as an individual and less like as like a business platform.
Hmm.
So I'm having to go back and like retrain uh the algorithm a little
Yeah.
bit. Such a hard lesson to learn. Um,
Yeah.
with that said, it's, you know, like as an author, you're like more of a public figure. It's like this weird balance between being a public figure and then also being a business
Hmm.
in itself. So how do you balance that while still like that business side of it, while still showing up as like this person, this identity, in a way that like feels or I don't even want to say successful because that's so
Hmm.
tenuous and like subjective to the person. Um, but like feels worthwhile.
So I think this goes for me as an author and as a person, and I'm assuming this is going to go for most listeners, most writers, and everything.
Mhm.
So much of me and myself is in this public figure of an author and the business. So there's it's kind of a weird, like, internal, almost subconscious, like, groove that you get into, because it doesn't always feel like you're running a business. It feels like you're just operating as yourself, because my love of books, and I'm sure for everybody else listening, and the love of books runs so deeply, and the love of your story runs so deeply and everything. So um yeah, it's sort of like a subconscious thing where you're just moving in the way that works for your business because you love your business so much. I really hope that makes sense. Um,
No, absolutely.
but I feel like it is such a gift to be an author, and even furthermore, a self-published author, because it you're running this business purely because you love you love what you've made. Um, and so I feel like just having that, and having something that you do love so much and hold so dear to your heart, like you're going to subconsciously make these moves in that way to um, sort of ensure, and like, yeah, as you said, success might not be the right word, but like authenticity. Um, uh, yeah, I feel like that's good. And in my head, I uh, correlate like authenticity with success, because I feel like the more I am myself and the more I put out this love that I have, like the more success that I find, and success isn't always in the numbers, and the amount of views you have and the follows and the comments and everything. Success comes, sometimes down to just a single interaction where, you realize you reached the right person.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, because really in self-publishing, um, I think it's hard sometimes to measure the success in like quantities
Mm-hmm.
because it's so ongoing. Like if you just look at the financials,
Mm-hmm.
um, sometimes it's hard to like justify everything.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I mean, for most of us, we finish a project and we're like right into the next project.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
it's like we're like trying to catch up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that I think it really kind of brings it back to like what you were implying about like building a community, building this
Mm-hmm.
like audience that's more of a community of people who just like love the storytelling and love the culture of reading and being immersed in storytelling. Um,
Yeah.
Rather than like, oh, I got, so many views or like I have so many followers right now because like just because you have a lot of followers, that doesn't translate to ROI.
Yes, and that's like one of the biggest, like if you take nothing else away from this episode, whoever is listening out there, if you take nothing else away that from than this is, yeah, follower count. I'm not going to say it means nothing, but I would 100 times rather have 2,000 followers, 200 followers that are engaging, that are, readers that support me, support my journey, for everything, than 20,000 and 200,000 who are just here because I went viral for something. Um, and that was a lesson that I learned. I mean, like I feel like I knew that, but when I did PR packages for my second book, um, and I feel like I was just going for people who had the most followers, because of course you want influencers. And I quickly found that the the following was, yes, it was engaged, but like the ratio of engagement wasn't always as high, and a lot of times you sort of just turn into a number, where people were unpacking book mail, stacks and stacks of book mail, and I got
Mm-hmm.
10 seconds, versus these, I guess you'd call them micro influencers, who have 500 followers, 2,000 followers, even like 5,000 followers, but every single person, you're not every single person, but like, they have a high, rate of engagement, and those are the right people.
Yeah.
So yeah, follower count does not always mean anything. Same with, yeah, like count and view count and everything. So that's like the one thing I try to drill into people is like, it's not, you're not trying to get the K next to your follower count, or the M. That's 10,000 great, a million great, but it's it's not just so cut and dry as more is better.
Yeah. I made the mistake early on. I was doing all of these like follow trains
Hmm.
um, on Instagram and Facebook where, you follow everybody and like you go back and forth.
Hmm.
And what I ended up finding, number one, anytime I did that, I ended up with like these like really sketchy dudes in my DMs
Hmm.
that were like probably robots
Yeah.
who really wanted to be my sugar daddy.
Uh-huh.
And as tempting as that sounded,
Uh-huh.
um, um, so like they weren't really effective. It just ended up leading to like a lot more headache down the road.
Mhm.
But also my engagement went way down. So I had all
Mhm.
of these people that I was following and they were following me, but my engagement was tanking every time I did it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and so like, yeah, my follower count went up some, but like it was almost like my content then was just being like I don't want to say shadow banned because I think people say that a lot and I don't think it means what they think it means.
Mhm. Yeah.
um, but like, it the outcome was not what I was going for.
Yeah, it's
And
almost like it's like being blasted into the void, hoping somebody's gonna pick up on it versus like blasted into like a small little like puddle of people. I don't, that's not a good, but like who are gonna at least pick it up. Yeah, it's getting in front of a bunch of eyeballs isn't always the best thing.
yeah, yeah, like fishing in a large lake doesn't mean you'll
Mhm.
have better success than fishing in a small pond.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So I feel like I know like something I'm sort of still cleaning up now, and this was a mistake that I made in the beginning is I was following back every single person who followed me. Um, and while I think there
Same.
is some merit to that, yeah, I think that's like a natural thing. Like in my head, I was like, these people are believing in me on this, on the start of this journey. And like you said, you're gonna get guys who are butts, you're gonna get creepy people, you're gonna get people who have nothing to do with anything that and so I'm kind of starting to go back through and like unfollowing people who aren't relevant or who aren't going, who it's sometimes it's just too much. There's just too much
Mhm.
going on. Or
Yeah.
people who
My
don't
thing
even.
is, my thing right now is like because I have my personal Instagram,
Hmm.
that and Facebook, and then
Hmm.
I have my professional side. And on my professional side, I've got all these like grannies and biddies from my family that they
Uh-huh.
want to be supportive, and so I've followed them back, but like they're not my audience. Like
Yeah.
they um my stuff going to their friends is
Hmm.
not going to do anything for me other than confuse them because
Right. Yeah.
this is not their niche. Um,
Yeah.
and it feels weird to unfollow or to not follow those types of people in your life.
Hmm. Hmm.
But there has to be kind of like this conversation of they can follow you. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to refollow.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but also you want to make sure you're setting yourself up for the most amount of success that you could probably get from social media.
Yes. Yeah. And I think also like that kind of leads into obviously, a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. I'm sure when this comes out in November, there will be even more stuff. And social media is such a melting pot, I guess you could say, of, viewpoint, politics, and stuff like that. And so I think that in this day and age where your digital footprint is so permanent and people do like look into these things, oh my, did you see she was following this person? That's, I think, one thing is like you want to make sure that the people who you are following and interacting with and stuff are people whose viewpoints align with yours and who, you're not going to um, hesitate backing up. Oh, this. Well, yeah, I was following them because I believe this, and this. So that's one. Without obviously going into too many specifics, it's
Yeah.
the world is contentious right now. I think that we can all agree on that. Um, but that's definitely one thing. And yeah, sometimes unfortunately it comes down to family members. Is like, okay, well, your family member might be posting some things that might not align with the way you want to present yourself to the world. So that is another thing, and it's unfortunate that's what it has to come down to. But like I think if anyone out there is a Love Island viewer, I think I know this is probably I know it's going out in November, but there is a lot of stuff going on right now with the contestants that are on their digital footprints where people are picking apart things. So um, you know, that's one thing I feel like to be definitely mindful of.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that's part of the persona aspect as well. Like, you know, as
Yes.
being a public figure
Mhm.
in this capacity, you do have to think
Mhm.
about your digital footprint.
Yeah.
Um, there's an element of humility that
Mhm.
comes with it. I
Mhm.
think before you start marketing on social media, you need to have the capacity to apologize if you misstep because we're all human.
Yes.
It is
100%. Yes.
like, you know, we're all bound to make mistakes, and
Mhm.
that's okay. But you
Mhm.
have to have the capacity to step back and be like, oh, messed up,
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then correct it. You know, like you want to make sure that,
Yes.
you know, an apology isn't real unless it's met with some action. So just
Yes.
a little bit of therapy
Yes.
for you
I
there.
100% agree. Yeah. Because I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about like if you're putting yourself out there, you're kind of inviting other people to, respond at will. Um, and same thing, like, yeah, some of those responses might be people calling you out or whatever, and it's human nature to make errors. It just is. So it's, yeah, that's definitely a big element, and hopefully, those who are listening will never have to deal with, something like that, and meet, because a lot of people are forgiving and a lot of people aren't. It sucks, but yeah, that's humility. That's a good word, but definitely need to have
Mhm.
a lot of that going into this journey.
Yeah. And I think if you've already been through the editing process, you should already have started gaining some of that because that takes a
Yeah.
lot of humility too.
Yes,
Um,
definitely. Yeah, yeah.
um, so actually I would love to hear your input on this because, you know, I'm not somebody who is a fast publisher. Like I'm not coming
Mhm,
out with projects like back to back to back to back.
mhm,
It's just not the way my system works.
mhm.
Um, so do you have a way that you like create content and post that's different during your launch periods versus like the in between times to kind of like maintain your foothold in the space?
So I guess yes and no. So yeah, so during the time that I am, ramping up for a release, I'm coming up on, these big dates and everything. It's sort of like I almost kind of package deal it into everything. Okay, well, alongside my editing and my, feedback and my formatting and this and that is social media. I don't always package my social media and the marketing alongside like my writing so closely. Um, when I'm in between releases or I'm not in like one of those like hardcore, fast times, I I really let my mood, my motivation, and my mental health sort of guide me. The three M's: motivation, mood, and mental health. I'll say that. I let a lot of that guide me. Because the beautiful thing about this, and no matter what I think people say, um, in terms of keeping your space and everything, is your readers aren't going to forget you. You made a good point about like people have been waiting for Akatar 6 for years now, and the second it drops, everybody's, will be buying it, reading it, flipping through, um so I definitely try to take the pressure off myself to post every single day, because I don't think that you need to do that, to keep, yeah, like a foothold in the industry and in this space. Um, yeah, it's a little bit different when you're around release time. That's when I am posting every day, sometimes multiple times a day. Um, but one of the really good things that I feel like has come out of like, recent history is stories on Instagram. On, they all have stories. Is so you don't have to be making some like curated perfect post every day to still be on people's radar. You can share something to your story. You can snap a picture of, your workspace that day. I feel like that's a really good low pressure way to, stay relevant, stay on people's minds and stuff. But at the end of the day, you can only do what you can do, and your true readers, your true fans are not, it's not going to matter how much you're out there on social media. They're going to read your book.
Yeah, that's great. Um, I think I just keep thinking about this thing I said. I recorded something earlier today and it was like,
Mhm.
you don't have to do any of this. And if
Yeah.
you keep that in mind, like I think it takes away a little bit of the pressure. I
Hmm.
interviewed another author and she has like no social media presence.
Hmm.
She has like one Facebook page for people who just want to chat about the books.
Hmm.
And she does great and she, manages to really like thrive on Amazon.
Hmm.
But like that's her readership. They aren't on
Hmm.
social media.
Hmm.
Um, so you don't like this isn't a necessity,
Hmm.
but it is like a bonus resource that's super accessible.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think sometimes just like keeping that in mind, like it takes the pressure down a little bit.
Yes,
Um,
definitely. Yeah. And that you don't have to do everything. Like that was one thing that I learned in school that's like you don't have to have like I said, like I don't have, even though I was my little TikTok girl a couple years ago, I don't have a tick I have a technically have a TikTok for my books, but I don't use it at all because that is not my area of expertise in terms of books. Like for laundry, sure, like I'm gonna run that TikTok. But like for books, I am much more familiar with Bookstagram over Book Talk. You know, um, the the pressure to literally run a Facebook, a Twitter, a Threads, a TikTok, and this and that and everything. Like you can't do that. It's not, I don't know anybody in all of the years, that I worked in marketing and everything and interacted with I don't know anybody who's good at every single platform. You just can't be because they're all different. They all, um and so yeah, and like you said, like going to where your audience is, like, if your audience is, the baby boomers, you might not, well, you might find on Instagram, honestly. But yeah, you're gonna have a different tactic if you're writing for, even 35 to 45 versus 20 to 30 kind of thing. Yeah, it's you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do everything. You just do what you can do.
yeah. I also know like there's some authors that use Discord
Hmm.
and they just gain because not everybody loves the setup of Meta
Yeah,
or TikTok.
yeah,
And but they love conversation.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
they like to have that access to somebody creative.
Uh,
And so that like, that could be more your style and that's open and accessible to you. Like you can do
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's like a happy medium. It's sort of like when they say like, "Oh, find what makes you happy and find what's going to make you money and meet in the middle." Like, okay, well find, where your audience is and find what you're good at and what you're comfortable with. That's another thing is what are you comfortable with and like, yeah, meet in the middle, figure out something that works. And that might take some time. Um, but and yeah, I mean just because you're not on just because you don't have a profile on TikTok does not mean that your book's not going to end up on TikTok. That's like the beauty of user generated content is that people, are going to talk about the book. They're going to post about the book. You don't have to do that.
Yeah. So, as we start to kind of wrap up the episode, is there anything? I have like two like really big questions like towards the end.
Mhm.
Um, is there anything you wish you had known earlier, like when you were just starting out, about marketing on social media that you know
I
now?
think I think like you said, like yeah, you don't have to do any of this. Writing the book, publishing the book and everything like that, like that's at the end of the day the most important. Anything, and it depends on what your goals are. If you want to make this a career, if you want to, if you want to make significant money from this, um, anything that you can do extra to market, like pat yourself on the back, like that. Anything you can post, anything you can share beyond just publishing your book is a bonus. Um, and also, this is so simple, and I feel like everybody always says this, but don't compare yourself because the beauty of this industry and the beauty of social media is that there genuinely is room for everybody. Like there is room for everybody. I don't know many people who can like pick one favorite author. Like they might have one that comes to mind, but oh well, I also love this. I also love this person. Like the beauty of this industry is that people are voraciously reading. There's always going to be an audience, you're not going to be forgotten. So don't compare yourself just because one person, got a deal, just because one person went viral, just because, one person did all these things that you want to do does not mean that you're not eventually going to get there.
Yeah, I love that. I also, something I'm like trying to tell myself more of is when I am seeing successful people on Instagram in my field,
Mm-hmm.
that means that I am surrounding myself with the correct platforms. That means like
Yes.
I'm on the right path. Um, that means that their stuff is coming to me, but that also means that my stuff is more likely to come to them.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
And so that's like a
Absolutely.
good sign.
Yes, yeah, very, very much so. And that is, I like that. Like, yeah, surround yourself with these people, whether you're actually interacting them or just following them. Like, yeah, find your people, and your people will find you.
Yeah. I that is such a hard lesson too, because the other thing that has been so hard for me to remember is like an ongoing process where I'm like constantly reminding myself that
Mhm.
I'm seeing the highlights, of these people who are doing really well. I'm not seeing so much of the behind the scenes. So, like maybe this one author released 4 books in 1 year. Well, that doesn't mean she wrote them all in one
Yeah,
year.
yeah, and that also doesn't mean that she wasn't literally pulling her hair out, stressed. Yeah, that's the thing that I try to remind myself. And like, it's as amazing of an industry as it is, like sometimes it's hour to hour, like you get these huge wins, um and and then an hour later you're crashing out over something else because somebody else gained some huge, got some huge accomplishment, or you got a bad review or whatever. Yeah, it's very like it is the highlight reel. And I try really hard to strike a balance of like sharing the not so great stuff more so on my story. um Especially like when it came to, like I had mentioned before, like my pregnancy. I was like, I feel like people were like, oh my gosh, if you publish this book, you have a 3 month old. I was like, you did not see the literal hell that I went through to get this out. So it's like, yeah, I think that we as humans make the mistake. First of all, I don't think we as humans should have ever had social media. I think we have there's too much going on all the time. But we like make the mistake of assuming that anything that we see was like done easily. So it's like, we see our friend or our colleague or our peer, yeah, get a 6 7 figure deal, and we're like, man, she just sat down and wrote that book and got this. Like we don't see, yeah, like the behind the scenes. So um yeah, and it kind of ties it all up with a nice bow of like, yeah, you just can't compare yourself. Like and it's an ongoing thing you have to tell yourself. It's really hard not to.
Yeah, I don't know why this is popping in my head. And maybe because it's just such a like big discourse right now on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And this will be old news by the time this airs, but like it reminds me a little bit of like the whole like Y2K skinny thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like trending again or whatever.
Yeah.
And growing up during that time and like seeing these people who are like so thin and just like,
Mm-hmm.
looking up to them, but at the same time, like not seeing like the health complications and like,
Yeah.
all of the like body dysmorphia and like all of the
Mm-hmm.
just like literal hell that is
Yeah.
happening in order to
Yeah. Yeah.
achieve
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Like it's very easy to be looking at these screens and just completely lost to what the reality is.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, 100%. I feel like also like with like, yeah, it's a highlight reel, and then they play on the emotions of like, they find like the inspirational songs, and everything looks really good when when you put it to an M83 song, and oh my gosh, look at she did this, and she's jetting off here to go to this conference, and she's flying here, and oh my gosh, look, she just got another deal kind of thing. Yeah, but that's all well and good, but yeah, doesn't mean that it was easy, or that they worked hard, or they didn't work hard, or um yeah, that's like that's like a constant thing that you have to remind yourself. It's not like
Mhm.
don't compare yourself, and then you just don't. Like that is, every day that's a battle for all of us. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
And
one
a
of
lot
those
of
things
us
you
are
gotta keep fighting.
conditioned. A lot of us are conditioned to compare ourselves. Like, going
Yes,
back to that idea of Y2K skinny, like we were conditioned
yes, yeah,
to, look at these people as role models
yes,
and without any sort of education of like why that might not be a great idea.
yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah, yeah. And I think that I feel like it's um, kind of coming around where like hustle culture, where it's like you need to be working 18-hour days or else you're gonna fail. Like I feel like that's sort of dying down now because it's
Mhm.
like becoming apparent that not everybody, that's not sustainable for everybody. For the select few it might be, but I feel like as a whole, the industry, at least from what I see, um, a lot more empathy is coming out, um, you know, as we, I guess, go forth in the world. Um, so yeah, I guess just be kind to yourself and be understanding of yourself and of others. And yeah.
I love that. Okay, and then so for the people who we kind of touched on this a little bit, but like for the people who just feel super awkward about promoting, like not
Mm-hmm.
just themselves, but like that idea of, hey, this is my book. You should buy my book or you should read my book.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, because that's really what marketing is supposed to be,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
getting people to buy your product.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For people who just feel really awkward or even like icky doing that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
do you have any tips or suggestions for like getting out of that like weird feeling of promoting their books?
I feel like to an extent, if it feels awkward, if it feels icky, if it feels weird, you're doing something right. Because it doesn't mean that if it doesn't feel like that, you're doing something wrong. I just feel like that means that you're on the right track because for most people, like marketing doesn't come, like it's not natural. It's not like a natural mindset to be in. So it's like, yeah, you are selling, yourself just as much as you're selling, your book and your story. I think that a lot of it is as kitschy and stupid as this sounds, a lot of it comes down to believing in your story and believing in your work. And I know a lot of days, like for me, that's hard. There are a lot of days where I am reading through my book for, reading to write the next one. And I'm like, God, this is garbage. Like, why did I write this kind of thing? But I feel like having an overarching, like, you wrote a freaking book, like, you wrote a book, you deserve to put it out there kind of thing. Um, I feel like that mindset is important. But yeah, a lot of it feels icky. A lot of it feels weird because it's not like, yeah, you're not just selling a product, you're selling you, and you're not just selling you, you're selling a product. So it's kind of just it's a weird feeling. If it feels
Yeah.
weird, you're doing it right.
Yeah. It's like, do it anyways.
Yes, yes, that's exactly. Do it anyways. You don't have to do it and do it anyways. Those are, yes, 100%.
Yeah. Um, okay. So can you give an idea, like in the launch period, how
Mhm.
much time do you normally spend um, on the social media marketing?
So now that I have it sort of down to a formula, it's less, but I would say like starting out to where, like you said, if your podcast is trying to reach people who are at the beginning, you're gonna spend a stupid amount of time. You're gonna be ripping your hair out. You're gonna hate it. You're gonna second guess everything because you're gonna be spending so much dang time on it. And you should, honestly, I feel like you should be spending that much time, especially if you don't have like a marketing mind. I can't put like a number on, I spent 57 hours, but
Right.
um, I mean, like just between graphic creation, between, creating reels, between brainstorming, between, it takes a lot of time and it should. And you'll get to a point where, yeah, you sort of come up with your own formula, what works and everything. Um, but in the beginning, it is, it's a lot. Like I always say, being a writer is like 3% writing and the rest is freaking marketing and admin. So,
And also, like, I feel like most writers, not everybody, but like your first book is probably going to take the longest to produce
yeah.
between the first draft and like everything. And then it gets a little easier because you find processes that work, you find things
Hmm.
that work for you. Same thing with social
Hmm.
media. Like you're going to
Yeah.
find what works for you, come up with some sort of process that,
Hmm.
is manageable. Um,
Hmm.
but then there's always going to be times where you have to go back and reevaluate because what
Yeah.
was working might not work anymore.
Right, right, right. Yeah, 100%. And I think also one thing, and this goes kind of past even a marketing thing, um, but one thing, like a big thing that I learned with this is that people, especially if you're writing a series, so more than one book, you are going to lose a lot of readers from book one to book two. It doesn't matter
Mhm.
if your book was, movie material. It doesn't matter. That's just how it is. Um, your true readers will always find you. Your true fans will always come back and everything. You're going to lose a lot. So one thing that I didn't know is like seeing lower numbers on, lower number of reviews, whatever, of purchases on my second book. That does not mean that your marketing is not working. If anything, it should be showing that your marketing is working, because people are buying the second and third, whatever. But that's definitely, you might see higher numbers on your first than you do on your second, and that's not a bad thing. That's just the way
Mhm.
the world works, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. So to kind of like bring us all together,
Mhm.
moving forward, um, how like we're kind of thinking ahead of ourselves, but how do you foresee your social media strategy evolving as you publish more? Like, what are you kind of going towards in this new year? You have a new book that released. It, you know, when this airs, it had released
Uh-huh.
in was it September?
September, yeah.
So like moving forward, you've got that new release, and then I'm sure you're working on something new. What are you kind of
Hmm.
going towards with your social media?
So I'm sort of just going to keep, I think, the same mindset as just knowing that not everything works forever. I'm kind of just going to keep doing the same thing and trying to keep on, keep on trends and looking for, staying power with like the quotes and everything. I think that so far has worked really well for me, and I've kind of carved out a nice little niche for myself. Um, And as I go forward, I still am unsure as to what I'm going to do with my next series, whether I'm going to pursue traditional or stay indie. Um, obviously there's merits in both, but yeah, I feel like the sort of method that I've made for myself has worked really well. It's my fourth book now that'll be coming out, um, and that's sort of, I guess, yeah. The advice would be find find what works for you and stick with that, and but be flexible because it might not work forever. So that's the plan.
I love that. And I also think that really goes along well with, you emphasizing that you have quiet periods
Hmm.
as well. If you are posting every single day, or if you like, you're like 3 days a week where you got a reel or a post out,
Hmm.
um, aside from stories, because I feel like that's a different animal.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but if you are doing that all the time and never taking like a little bit of time to be quiet, I think it's really easy to miss when things are not really working anymore, or
Hmm.
to miss out on like what is new and what is becoming more effective
Hmm.
on the platforms, because
Yeah.
they will go through these huge shifts sometimes.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely, like during that quiet time sort of gives you, yeah, time to reevaluate, okay, what worked, what didn't. And you're probably going to get advice from a lot of people that say, make sure you're posting every day. Make sure you're posting 3 days a week, three reels a week and two static posts kind of thing. And that's all well and good for the current climate, but in 3 weeks it's going to be something different. So um definitely don't. It's not a failure on your part if you go through points of like no motivation, where you have a couple weeks where you're like, you know what, I just can't post right now because I'm writing, because things life is crazy, you know, because I just don't feel like it, kind of thing. It's not a failure, and the same way your readers are going to find you, your followers are going to, you know, are going to find you too. So it's okay to take breaks, definitely.
I love that. Awesome. Lauren, thank you so much. I feel like trying to find the highlights in this episode is going to be so hard because I feel like every question had like a nugget of
Oh my
gold in
gosh,
it.
thanks. That makes me feel good,
Um,
because I feel like a lot of times I go off and I'm like, I don't know, I end up
yeah,
somewhere
no,
where I wasn't sure I was going.
it's like discovery writing, which is what I call pantsing. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like you find the gold in the like just
Yes,
wandering. Yeah.
exactly.
Um, I think yeah, I'm so thrilled with this. Thank you so much for coming and visiting with us and giving us really honestly, I feel like if anything else, we just are leaving with like so much inspiration.
Oh, thank
So thank
you.
you.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, thank you for having me. I love talking about this, so good stuff.
Yay. So before we sign off, can you tell the people where they can
Mhm.
find you? Anything new that you want to share with our listeners today?
So you can find me on Amazon. I am on Barnes and Noble online. I'm on Target online, and then for in terms of books on social media, I'm most active on Instagram at Lauren M Leasure. Um, always, I feel like I'm always lurking there, so yeah, that's where I always am. And my only, I'm not sure. I'm sure at that point I'll have, you know, a couple more events announced, but just in case it hasn't been announced, the one event that I have planned for next year is a Polycon in April in DC. So I'm so freaking excited. Um,
Oh,
so
that's
yeah,
so
so that's where
awesome.
I'll be. Thank you. I'm super excited. I went in 2024, and I'm pumped to go back. Um, yeah, so if anybody's coming to a Polycon, come say hi. And yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Lauren. And to all of our listeners, we will see you on our next episode.
oh, that's so fun.